recorded. Thank you. Now we'll move to item number 9. Thank you very much.
Kia ora, thank you again. I would just like to take this opportunity in introducing our second item for the Manukau Harbour North and the Whataputa South Head plans to welcome through the chair Shona Oliver, representing Ngā Monga Whakahi o Kaipara to the room. She's online in support of the Whataputa South Head Shoreline Adaptation Plan.
And tēnā koe, Shona, and I know that you're not wanting to speak today, but feel free to put your hand up if there is something you'd like to speak to. But thank you so much for being here and all the work on this again. Kia ora.
Kia ora. So now we are bringing you the Manukau North and the Whataputa South Head plans. So that represents plans 17 and 18 of the series of 20 of the now 16 approved plans through this committee, and you can see those areas highlighted here. These have been some of our longest plans in terms of the development cycle that they've been through, which Lara will speak to in a bit more detail in a moment. They do represent a significant portion of our coastline. Beyond today, we will just have the Waiheke Island and Inaharahi Gulf and the Ōrākei Shoreline Adaptation Plans to bring for your approval in the next term. And there isn't much more for me to say, so I will pass over to Lara.
Kia ora, thank you. So in terms of the two plan areas that you see before you on the screen today, speaking for the Whataputa South Head Shoreline Adaptation Plan, this includes many of our West Coast communities, the West Coast beaches, which are incredibly special, dynamic environments. It's a really unique area from a coastal perspective, where we do have accretion for part of the southern area of this West Coast area. And for our Manukau North coastline, we have again some really special coastal communities who are more isolated out towards Huia and Whatapu. We've got, as we've heard from the local community, some real hidden gems in terms of connections to the coast here. We've got really important coastal connections within the Manukau Harbour. We've got some really special legislative context in terms of the Heritage Act for the Waitakere Ranges, and some quite significant land holdings in terms of regional parks and other local parks and reserves throughout this area. As Natasha's alluded to, this also has been a real journey over the past few years for the communities within our West Coast and Northern Manukau environments, with the effects of the 2023 storm events, impacts on access, impacts on private property, on public land, and loss of life and biodiversity as well. So it's been a real journey for these communities, and we have taken a little bit more time in terms of developing these plans with what we've heard from local boards, from elected members and communities in this space. And there are still a lot of discussions to come, because a lot of our communities here are still really engaged in that recovery work, so just acknowledging that. In terms of our engagement with iwi across these plans, we are still ongoing with that engagement and acknowledging Te Kauarau Āmaki, Ngā Mana Whakahi o Kaipara. Also in terms of the Manukau Harbour North plan, where we come into the eastern areas, Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei and our Waiahua group and Tainui have also input and been very engaged in the Shoreline Adaptation Plan program in general. We've had a number of community engagement events across these areas, some of the most well-attended events supported by our councillors and our local boards in Huia, at Piha, Kari, and in Tihinga. And we have had numerous workshops with the 4 local boards, and we've received endorsement from all of our local boards across these areas. So thank you very much.
Kia ora. Thank you very much. Member Ashby.
Kia ora. Thanks for the report, and just want to acknowledge you taking the time to go back to those West Coast in particular communities, and I'm noting the local board feedback. So obviously spent a bit of time to get that result. So just acknowledging that, and Shona, just acknowledging you online. Probably just one question for you, if you're happy to answer, and that's just: are you comfortable with the whatapu piece of this? Or if I can put that another way, if she's not online, I'm assuming she's here to support, so I can take, if she can't respond, that as an affirmative. But do you have any comments about that?
Kia ora, through the chair, and not speaking on behalf of Shona, but in terms of the engagement we've had with Ngā Moana Whakahi, there's been, I guess, some challenges in terms of the opportunity to sit down and take the time with some of the hui there. Our engagement is ongoing, and we look forward to working further with all iwi in terms of implementation of these plans.
I think.
Thanks, Member Ashby. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. Me again. You made the comment that about the Huia Domain seawall mitigation, that this plan wasn't in place when that took place, and I was thinking when you said that about flexibility and whether they would have been better off with the plan in place or not in place. Like, is it not correct that what took place, the events in Huia, would have informed your decision making on this plan, on what you're doing here? Like, so what I'm trying to say is, was there more flexibility for the community to have pushed back and got what they wanted compared to what council was trying to deliver? Will this plan fix those things? Sorry. Would a plan like this more regiment any proposals that the community was trying to work with in the future?
Kia ora. Through the chair, I think in terms of having not had the shoreline adaptation plan at the time of the Huia domain discussions, I think it really would have just enabled and supported the process in terms of some of those discussions that were had. And now what we have, if I recall correctly, for the Huia embayment is protect in the short term, and referencing some of the current coastal renewals that we have underway at the moment. We have the Foster's Bay, which is currently tracking really well through a community engagement event, and now the formation of a small community reference group that are working directly with the council team around some of the options there in support of what the shoreline adaptation plan advocates for there. Similarly, we have the Little Huia boat ramp, which is supported through the Coastal Renewal Programme, and again is giving effect to what is in the shoreline adaptation plan that you have in front of you today for that protect. So I think it really is just, we've done a lot of detailed consultation with all communities across Auckland through this, and as Lara's touched on, I dare to say probably more in the Waitakere Ranges areas than some of the others. So we have a really full understanding of the values and the areas of concern which we have done our best to reflect through the plans.
Thank you. Next question, if I may. So the Huia domain has been a success, in my opinion. I think in most people they're saying it's a success. And the Foster's Bay plan is moving ahead, as you say, yet to duplicate the success at Big Huia has been ruled out. And so would not this plan, would not a good shoreline adaptation plan, which is a living document, actually absorb that learning and pass it forward?
Through the chair, I think it's important to recognise that coastal management has a range of different responses that can be applicable in any given area. What my team do is look at the coastal processes and the coastal environment in any of those given site-specific locations to determine what are the most feasible options, in this case for protection at any given area. So for Huia, there was a preferred option there that came through the workshops with the community for the 2 semi-detached groins with the provision of some beach nourishment to protect the seawall in front, or behind, sorry, from any further undermining and scour. At Foster's Bay, we have some slightly different issues there. We have a historic reclamation, we have a number of different stormwater outfalls and abutments that are protracting onto the beach and make it quite unsightly. The community have raised through the engagement that we've had so far concerns around the functionality of beach nourishment with the stormwater outfall. So actually from what I personally have heard through the engagement, there has been a level of hesitance for a similar response to necessarily be taken out at Foster's Bay, but they are quite keen on what we've been workshopping with them so far, which is a more tiered structure to reduce some of the overtopping and to enhance the beach space in front in terms of some of those coastal structures that are there.
Thank you. Last question. So the shoreline adaptation plans for this area, which I know the best, they take the line of the boundary of the shorelines right up on the ridgeline of the hills and stuff. I've questioned this before. It shows parkland is identified as highlighted area in the maps. And I did show you when we were there things like the Hinge Bay wooden retaining seawall that had fallen down, and it's in council land, so therefore no intervention would be acceptable because there's 200 metres between there and any structure. Yet I did explain the fact that the local community hall used to earn serious income, good income, by people going down to that beautiful little spot, having a wedding, and then having their wedding breakfast in the hall and things. So what I'm trying to explain is the knock-on effect of our actions in one place that's having a physical effect, a tangible effect to the community. And then I see these boundaries drawn right up on the ridge lines. What's the where do these considerations come together within those boundaries? So, you know, all we talk about here is the shoreline, yet you've drawn areas much greater than that, with a lot more.
Kia ora, through the chair. I guess the question might be best answered in 2 parts. So in terms of that inland boundary that's drawn in the shoreline adaptation plans, what we're looking at there is really the hazardscape. So we're looking at our best available information at the regional scale, so our coastal inundation mapping, looking at our coastal erosion susceptibility mapping and instability mapping, and we're looking at the catchment flooding as that interacts with the coast. Now, in some of our more low-lying areas and along our west coast and our dynamic environments, that does actually end up including a reasonably large area of land, because we do have very dynamic coasts, and just because of the energy from the coast and the type of land that it interacts with. So that's really why we have that boundary drawn there, and then that does need to follow some form of geographic line, whether it's a road, whether it's a ridge line, or whether it's a boundary of a park or something like that. So that's how we've sort of drawn those lines. In terms of speaking specifically to Hinge Bay and how we've tried to capture perhaps some of those uses, this is applicable to Hinge Bay and to many areas where we've got reserve and coastal areas which are highly valued, but we might not necessarily have a lot of assets or defined uses present in those areas. Largely what communities tell us is they value those areas because of their natural beauty and their natural coastal beauty. And so we might acknowledge in the plan for that area that that's been a specific point of community feedback. And when we're thinking about future management, then that becomes something relevant to how we manage assets in that area, or how we might undertake further reserve management planning and the priorities for those documents as well. I'm not sure, Natasha, whether you'd like to add to that specifically.
Yes, through the chair, so I'm well familiar with Hinge Bay and the condition of the structure there, and this was a conversation that again we tried to progress a few years ago without the shoreline adaptation plan and have not been able to land yet. What I would like to anticipate is that through the shoreline adaptation plan it can be another good example of implementation of the SAPs. Again, touching on my earlier point around there are the opportunity for a range of different coastal management responses across the whole of the Auckland region. I believe this is an area where we could look at a more naturalised option. We have a very unsightly failed timber retaining structure there at the moment. There is a natural cobble bank system there and an opportunity to replenish and restore that and to give effect to the natural character of that area, which, as Lara has spoken to, has been something which is really valued for that area, lends itself well as well to it being an area within that wider regional park. So that is very much something that we would like to pursue through the shoreline adaptation plan to restore that natural area.
Thank you very much, and that's exactly what the public are saying. All the money's spent in this room debating it and making plans, and none is spent on, there's been no action at all. So it is unsightly because nothing's taken place there. You said one other thing there that, all I'm trying to point out, I suppose, in these questions is the Mayor makes the comment about we don't want to add value to private properties or to private entity without them facing the need to contribute. Our actions can also detract from the quality, the earning power, like the haulers, I say, they've lost a lot of income due to the way that bay looks. So I just wanted to make sure that was voiced too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick one. I was actually going to ask about Foster's Bay as well, because that's been an issue that's been in the community for a long time. You're ahead of me on that. Can I ask a broader question? Because I think sometimes we should zoom out and think, how do we communicate this to the public? For residents like those in Foster's Bay that have been dealing with that seawall issue and things like that, what does the shoreline adaptation plan mean to them? And what would it mean if a majority of councillors voted it down? What would happen?
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor. Through the Chair. So in terms of, I guess, the community support there, as Natasha's spoken to, there's been a lot more recent meetings in terms of thinking about what the design and what the outcomes are for Foster's Bay. I think as we've just, discussed, the shoreline adaptation plans give us that really good framework and that direction, and they help frame what some of those kind of the key values and outcomes are. There will need to be more local conversations as we move into implementation. And that's always the opportunity to test, have we got it right? And when we're looking at those more granular options, making sure that we provide communities the ability to comment, and that's been enabled in this case through that community reference group. So I think in terms of the risk, it would be, I think, a shame to those communities where they see this progress in terms of we've got this strategic plan and now this is how we're putting it into action. Might be confusing for them to not see support at this level, at that regional scale, when they're wanting to see this action at the local scale.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Mayor Brown.
Thank you. I'm just getting to understand the little pictures in there. You list kind of like the assets in an area that are under consideration. So 160 buildings out there. Are those the ones that are actually, or was it Highbrook, that one, which says 250 in Manukau, North Head. Those are the buildings that are in areas which have, it's not the total number of buildings. And then, so I get that, and it's good that you notice the roads, because that's access, and the other one, water pipes. What is the implication of noting the dams are up there? Because, I mean, they're well above sea level, unless I've missed it.
Kia ora, thank you through the chair. So in terms of acknowledging some of those key pieces of strategic regional infrastructure, it's primarily where we have access to those dams, or we've got structures or assets which are located within the coastal area. So there's one dam there where the road traverses the bottom of it, and we've worked with Watercare and they want to see the acknowledgement of the assets which do sit closer to that coastal environment.
Okay, that seems sensible. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there's any other questions. I guess for the next term, it would be good, and maybe it's a question or a comment, if we have, because I see the great work you're doing on a local level, but it would be good to come back, maybe workshop or something with the new council on, especially once you're finished up, on the kind of the program of assets, how you choose them, how do you respond, when there's been a storm, but also what is the plan? Because there's really great work in those before and after photos of, yep, we built a seawall. No, we've actually pulled out the seawall and helped plant up a dune system. It's cheaper, but it's actually saving the coast better, or whatever. Just because I think it's a bit more tangible for some people, and I know that communities in my ward that have felt they've lost something feel like they're actually gaining something once the work is done, and they can see, their immediate thing is often, we need a seawall, and then the team come in and go, actually building this far cheaper and less intensive piece of infrastructure actually is now providing a better ecosystem, or saving the beach, or the sand's coming back. There's really good examples of that, and the community sometimes want us to do things. I'll just give you a quick example. That Natasha gave me some great footage of Takapuna Beach before and after a storm. Communities often want us to go put sand back when the rocks are visible, and because it's really hard to walk on. But 2 months later, the sand is back anyway, and we didn't have to spend millions of dollars doing that. But if there are bits of your coast you want to find out about, or they've got good cameras on some of our beaches and things like that, that actually helps the community understand, is really, really important. So I want to thank you all for that. Do we have a mover for this? Councillor Henderson? Yeah, I'll take that. And then just second, Councillor Ferry. Are there any debating points? Councillor Turner. I'll just get you all to step back. Thank you.
That make me laugh. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is what the community is concerned about is inaction, and that this will just apply another huge raft of rules and regulations which come at a cost to the practical work and a slowing up of time. You speak, Mr. Chair, about people wanting their sand back. At Kari and Piha up that coastline, there's sand accretion, huge amounts of sand accretion. And at Kari, where only about 2 years ago they opened their new surf life-saving club, they couldn't get to it. They lost a ute trying to get across the bridge to get to it because the estuary was so full that it had blocked access to what is probably the most important emergency asset in that community. That's been fixed because nature cleared it itself just recently, but only just in the nick of time. I was at Piha yesterday where the community is also concerned, and the tide was right out. That estuary is blocked. The little estuary in the main Piha area there is lapping at the campground. Council used to have intervention. The regional park used to have a large wheeled loader machine up at Arataki, which they took down to these places and had practical intervention. The community have asked for this many times before. The only thing, and have acted a couple of times, the only thing that's played out is threats of abatement notices. The community is concerned that this is not crystal ball gazing, but kaleidoscope gazing. No one can really understand what is going to come out of this. It's a living document. While the community sees little change on the shoreline, we have huge change in all this planning and stuff. While I am grateful for Little Huia boat ramp upgrade, the last plans I saw 15 years ago had it at 400k, not 75, and was demanding stainless steel reinforcing. And while the people at Foster's Bay are also happy to see some action starting to take place with their seawall, these are just two little issues in what, as you saw by the map, is a very, very big issue. I disagree with the suggestion that this has got majority support, particularly in my area. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Just quickly, just want to pass on firstly a thanks to this committee. Since we passed the last shoreline adaptation plan on the Waitemata Harbour, I got some great feedback from the Te Aratu residents that were so thankful that we're actually focusing on those coastal assets that are so important to thousands of Te Aratuvians, and an understanding that climate change is biting on coastal communities all across Auckland. And they were thankful that we're giving them that attention, and which brings me to today, that I'm actually very proud of the work that staff have done on this, and I really liked their answer around all the community conversations that have happened and that whole process around it. That's really great because these things desperately need attention. And what are plans for at the end of the day? They're for giving attention to the problems of the city and ultimately for budget that will flow to fix those problems. 700k planned for the Foster's Bay boat ramp. That's a great solution. I remember through the term, it would have been a couple of years ago now, I went down there in Foster's Bay and door-knocked all those residents, and they were all very clear to me that we desperately needed that work done, and it is being done. I think that's a great thing. And these plans, you cannot divorce these plans from that attention and that budget. The Huia boat ramp, that's another great success story, and there's plenty all across Auckland and the various shoreline adaptation plans that we've passed and hopefully will continue to pass. I would encourage colleagues to pass this and to acknowledge all the work that's done in the community and reflect that with your vote. Kia ora. Thank you, Chair.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor. And just last, a quick couple of words from me. This is difficult with climate change. But I do want to acknowledge the years that have gone by since we did the pilot down in Waimanawa, Little Shoal Bay. There were signs up on people's fences saying "Save the Bay" from council. They thought this plan was to turn Little Shoal Bay into a estuary. There was a lot of misinformation and a lot of confusion and upset. Working with the community, working with mana whenua, working with the local board, actually they are happier than ever. There are projects now happening in that area. People now understand it's not the seawall that needs to be built to stop the water coming in. We learned 2023 it's actually the water coming through the native forest and Waimanawa, the streams coming up, and the water coming up through the grates underneath the car park. So now the community understands these things. Yes, there's climate change. Yes, the fact that Waimanawa used to be actually a marshland, and then a landfill and all sorts of different things. People now understand why we can't hold back certain parts of nature, but the team are able to show the plan that the board approved and then show the assets that are slowly being improved and the areas that may not be saved or may have a more natural approach to that. There's a beach in Beach Haven, Hadfield Beach, that we got the coastal team down in second week of Jan this year with water care. There's a water care asset, a pathway that was going to fall down, and the Esplanade Reserve, the community was scared that they were no longer going to have a place for their Christmas barbecues. The team got there, did some emergency works, quite, I won't say cheaply, but quite an affordable solution, and the community down there are stoked with the action. There's another beach across the way that I took Paul down there. There's a community there who wanted a seawall to protect their private properties. Paul very clearly said, A, we don't protect private property, but B, a seawall will actually ruin this beach. And the old guys down there are stoked with the advice they've had. They've now got a planting plan, volunteers doing it. We're not spending any council money on the solution down there, all because the team came out and explained the truth of what's happening around the coast, but also that the options don't always have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. But in as Councillor Henderson said, when Councillor Turner took me to Foster's Bay and the Huia boat wreck and showed me the problems, I got in contact with the team straight away and said, what are the options? And the team were already working on options. Yes, it's taken time, Councillor Turner, but I think you want the right solution there for the community that lasts. Those are just a couple of examples, but just want to acknowledge the team's work. This has been a huge number of plans done this term, like massive amounts, and the communities will see that action in the decades to come. So kia ora. All those in favour? Aye. Any opposed?
Guess what, Mr. Chair? Opposed.
Yeah. I couldn't have assumed anything different, Councillor Turner. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to